Hello, it's Sarah from Heart of Our Hearts, back with a belated weekly wrap-up. My apologies, I have not meant to be away for over a week and a half, but I've had technical challenges. I actually did an entire full video, but what ended up happening was that damn looping problem kept coming back. And I don't want you to have to sit through having to hear me repeat my name and my introduction over and over and over again. So we're going to try something different. I think there's something that happened in the latest update of the program and how I'm doing edits that's conflicting. So I am going to try something different, and I'm going to try to make this light edits if at all possible. So with that said, let's jump right in because I have a lot to share. So I had a great reading week, a little over a week. Let me tell you about some of them. The first thing I did was I listened to something that was in the Audible kind of free membership section. And this was Oil and Marble, a novel of Leonardo and Michelangelo. And this is by Stephanie Storey. I will admit I had very low expectations for this book. I just kind of thought, oh, okay, I love Florence. I'm really interested in this time in history. I love Roman culture. So let's just kind of see how it goes. And started listening to it, and it was so much more interesting than I expected it to be. Now, this is the historical telling of when Michelangelo and Leonardo, Michelangelo, obviously the great sculptor and painter, and then Leonardo da Vinci were both in Florence for a period of 4 to 5 years. And they're focusing really on when Michelangelo did the David sculpture. And the competition that they had, what was happening in Florence at the time, so there was just a lot of interesting pieces, and it kind of took me back to Florence. I enjoyed it. I thought it was interesting. I don't know how historically accurate it is, but for someone who's unable to travel right now, being able to revisit a place and learn a little bit was fantastic. So I enjoyed it very much. Next up, I have been meaning to read this for a very long time. This is E.F. Benson's series. This is Queen Lucia. This is a bind-up of 2 volumes. This is Queen Lucia and Miss Mapp. Really gorgeous. This is by Vintage Classics. Now, this is set at kind of between the wars, and it's kind of like a middle-class Real Housewives of Brideholm, which is where they live in England. And we've got the main character who is Lucia, is what she calls herself. And she is kind of considers herself the grande dame of this little town. And she's bestowing her culture on the masses. Oh, she's just a funny character. She's very full of herself. She gives airs. She claims to speak Italian, but doesn't really. She provides like little soirees and is very controlling of her environment and the people in it. Now, I was a little worried when I first started reading it because she returns from a trip and is shocked to find that, number one, people aren't just waiting for her with bated breath to find out how everything went on her trip, because one of the women in town has seemed to have become attached to a guru. And so I was really worried about the exoticism of this gentleman and all of that, and really fearful of how that was going to be playing out in the book. But the joke is really on the ignorance of the town, and how the town is glorifying and not how little they know, and all of the ways that they're trying to leverage this new person in their town to their benefit. And so I was very happy and surprised by that turn of events. But this was really witty, very funny. It made me laugh multiple times. So I'm definitely going to continue with this series. Then for Victober, I started with an audiobook of Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. And I'm here to tell you that was absolutely the right way to go. I think I might have to add some Robert Louis Stevenson in for every Victober. I forgot how much I forgot about this story. And I think I remember reading an old Classics Illustrated of this ages ago when I was a little girl. But this was so rich and the pacing was fantastic. We have Jim Hawkins, who is the son of an innkeeper, and a old sailor comes and stays with them. And this old sailor kind of gets Jim to make sure that he keeps on the lookout for a gentleman with a peg leg. And certain things happen, and people do come for this sailor that's been staying at their inn. And bad things occur. And in the trunk of this man's possessions is a map. When they take it to the magistrate is very excited, and he and his friend decide that they're going to do this. They're going to go on this adventure, and they invite Jim Hawkins to be one of their ship's cabin boys. And so they all go off on this adventure. We have Long John Silver, who is a character that I've heard about forever, but didn't really remember his context within the story. But loved this. And I think that one of the best scenes, this is not spoiling anything, they arrive at the island, and Jim Hawkins runs upon this gentleman named Ben Gunn. And Ben Gunn has been shipwrecked there, had been left from a previous encounter there, all on his own on this island. And all he wants is cheese. Of all the things that he could get from Jim Hawkins, he's obsessed with cheese. And I found that just to be so funny. I don't know why, but his exuberance for cheese was quite amusing. So I thought it was a delight, and I would listen to another audio. It wasn't the best audio. Some of the voices were very, very strange. But another rendition of this, I think, could be exceptional. So I adored it. And then the most important one, I finished Swans Way. This is volume 1 of In Search of Lost Time by Marcel Proust. Been reading this with Leo of A Little Book Life, and we finished it. And so we're moving straight on to the next one. We'll do an in-depth conversation about this with some ideas of how to approach it and what our experience was for those of you who may be nervous by it, which I understand. That's why it took me all these years to get to it. But it was an absolute delight. I see why this is so important in literature and the levels, and you could read this over and over again and find new gems. Fantastic book. So that was great. And then I also finished this funky, irreverent, bizarre little book. This is Bernadine Evaristo's The Emperor's Babe. Now, this is a book that is kind of like, it's poetry told in couplets. I'm not sure if you can see that, but it's not rhyming. There's also some longer poems in here as well. Here's an example. And this is a story set in Londinium in AD 211. This is of Zuleika. And Zuleika is a teenage bride. She is Nubian. And she and her family live in Londinium. And she has caught the eye of a Roman senator. I'm reading this, I should say, for Black British History Month and weaving this into my Victorian reads, which has been fantastic. This was an absolute delight. So I've already mentioned that I really like Roman history, and then I also love London. This reminded me of some of the fun that comes from reading the comics Asterix and Obelix, where there's so much about Roman culture that's kind of transitioned to us culturally, like words and ideas that we don't even recognize anymore. And she pulls all of that out and tells the story of this young girl who's really a teenager. And so it's told with like pop references and culture and and all of that. It's told in a very modern, witty, irreverent way, as I said. It's funny, it's poignant, it's very, very intense. There's a Colosseum scene that is so visceral. I won't forget it. And you just see this young girl who's trying to establish herself in this Roman culture, and I thought it was great. I thought it was fun, very, very different. This is not a normal telling, but the way it was done was great. I thought it was fun. I really hope other people will pick this little odd book up. Okay, so then let's talk about what I'm currently reading. So I'm currently reading on Kindle. I'm reading Old in Art School, Memoir of Starting Over. And this is by Nell, Irvin Painter. This is just something that I had in my collection and it just struck my fancy. So I started reading it. And it's about a Black woman who has already had an entire full career in academia as a historian, but who recognized a passion that was unfulfilled as a painter, as an artist. And so she decides that she is going to go to art school, and she is very determined, and she goes through all sorts of hardship to make sure that need is fulfilled, including still living in Newark, New Jersey, but traveling by train at an incredibly early hour to be the very first person there at the class, and also staying all the way through the day to the very, very late at night for the critiques, and then going home and doing it again. And this is in her 60s. So you see her passion. This is also at the same time that her parents are in decline here in Oakland, California, and she has to leave and come and take care of them and then go back. I'm learning so much about art. I'm learning through her eyes some interesting female artists that she's drawn to and talks about. But I'm also learning about, she talks a lot about like, what is the actual commercial opportunities for artists? Can it be made a profession, or is it a state of being? And what does it take for someone her age to make this transition and try to actually be seen as an artist that can get her work in galleries and can sell art and can make a living from it. It's quite interesting. I'm enjoying it very, very much. Then I'm also, for Victober, Leo and I are reading Bleak House. We are a fourth of the way through. This is obviously Charles Dickens' master tome. And I was making Leo laugh because I am so suspicious. I think I've read too many mysteries or too many noir with unreliable narrators and the like, that I keep getting super uncomfortable because I'm not sure if people can be trusted. And Leo had to remind me that Dickens isn't that complex. He adds a lot of characters, but what you see is kind of what you get with the characters. There aren't a lot of duplicitous characters in his work, and I forget that. And so I had to keep reminding myself of it. I also have to keep a log of all the characters because it's really hard to remember all of his people. But enjoying this very much, and as always, loving reading with Leo. And then Leo and I are also reading Volume 2. We just started. This is In the Shadow of Young Girls in Flower, of the In Search of Lost Time, Marcel Proust continuation. And then I made more progress and got back in with Elizabeth on A Writer's Diary. This is by Virginia Woolf. And this is just so fantastic. And I kick myself for not reading this faster, but at the same time, I love reading it slowly because I can savor it. And I can savor her little nuggets and her little wisdom. And in this section, she talked about a visit she made with Thomas Hardy. And I mean, what a better accompaniment with Victober, I can't imagine. And so it was a really interesting little time where she was kind of wanting him to be this illustrious older author, and he's kind of done with it, and he's just there to meet and talk with people, but he doesn't necessarily want to talk about the craft. And I think that that's really what she wanted. But really, her astute observations about his home and how he is with his wife and their interactions and who he is with her were just sublime. And she also talked about wanting to get back to Proust, which made me laugh and made me feel a kinship with Virginia Woolf. And then on audio, I'm listening to George Eliot's Daniel Deronda. And so this has been great. I put a poll out whether I should be listening to Adam Bede or Daniel Deronda, and unanimous Daniel Deronda. So I am in about 25% through that on audio and enjoying that tremendously. So that's it. That's all I have for right now. Thank you so much for being patient with me as I'm working through these challenges. Hopefully I'll be able to fix them soon and you'll be able to see this. That's it for me for now. Please, as always, maintain safe social distance. Wash your hands frequently. Don't touch your face. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye.